Over 17% of Memphis seniors are food insecure, meaning they have limited access to food. Tonight on The Best Times, we explore the work that one local agency is doing to feed the need. And we'll find out important information about a small gland in your body that does a big job. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Imagine being elderly, living below the poverty level on a fixed income. You've outlived friends and relatives, and on a daily basis, you aren't sure where your next meal is coming from. That is the plight of 5.5 million older Americans. The organization Feeding America recently released a study of food insecurity. It found that the hungriest citizens in America are in the Memphis metro area. 17.3% of our older population struggles to find food to eat. Tonight on The Best Times, we examine the work of MIFA, the Metropolitan Interfaith Association, and the efforts at feeding the need. In the early morning hours, food prep workers at MIFA are busy preparing the daily allotment of hot meals that will be delivered to the homebound elderly and seniors at congregate meal sites. According to 2017 statistics from Feeding America, 40 million people in the United States are food insecure, meaning they have limited access to food that would support a healthy lifestyle. Of that number, 5.5 million are age 60 and older. The top 10 metro areas with the highest percentage of food insecurity are found mostly in the South. Memphis ranks as the city with the hungriest senior population. 17.3% of seniors in the Memphis metro area are food insecure. Poverty is one of the greatest risk factors for food insecurity, but it's not the only one.
Some people can have the funds to pay for food but not have the access or the mobility to get food. And so I think a lot of times when people think of food insecurity, they may think, oh, we have grocery stores, we have all that, the food is available. However, if you don't have the access or the funds or the mobility to be able to get it, it still leads to major issues.
Meal recipients must qualify for MIFA's Meals on Wheels program. They must be screened by the Aging Commission for age and residency, and they must be nutritionally at risk due to an illness or disability. Each meal that comes off this food prep line is nutritionally balanced to meet the needs of the clients. Registered dietitians plan the menu to ensure that each meal contains more than 600 calories and less than 1,200 milligrams of sodium, with a balance of protein, fat, and fiber. The total cost for the food alone is $2.76. Delivery and other associated costs brings the total for each meal to about $8. During MIFA's last fiscal year, they served well over 500,000 meals to over 3,600 food insecure seniors. MIFA's survey of their meal recipients reveals that 94% eat healthier foods because of the program. 92% believe that the program helps them feel better, and 96% of home-delivered meal recipients believe the program helps them continue living in their own homes. Steve Freno has been a MIFA Meals on Wheels volunteer for 7 years. He's seen the crushing impact of hunger firsthand.
The poverty that I see and the almost desperation that I see sometimes from I see other people that I'm not delivering to that are like begging me for food, or how do I get on the list, or do you have an extra meal?
Every Tuesday morning, Steve delivers a hot meal to Joe Perry, a diabetic who lives alone in Beale Street Towers. For Miss Joe, the meals are a blessing.
There's certain things I can and can't eat, and the portion size are just right for my meal. When I eat my meals, the portion size, and then there's not too much seasoning, sodium and stuff, and some of them are delicious.
For Steve, Miss Joe has become a member of his family.
So she's kind of enmeshed herself into our family. She knows my wife, she knows my daughters, she knows my car was broken down, things like that. So she's sort of my extended family.
It's more than a meal because you're providing a hot meal, and for some seniors, that's the only hot meal they receive that day. It may be the only meal sometimes, but a check-in just to make sure everything's okay. A lot of them, they don't have family members. Some may be disabled and not be as mobile. And so just to be able to make sure that all is well with them, it may just simply be pulling back the film that's on the food just to make sure they can get to it, or, bringing the mail in.
In any given month, there may be thousands of people on the waiting list at the Aging Commission for food deliveries. The need is there. The volunteers are ready. All that's lacking is the money to make it happen.
There's so much of everything. There's excess of everything. There's supermarkets and restaurants throwing food away, and people throwing food away. In my neighborhood, there's people with 2 or 3 garbage bins every Friday, and and there's people here that are just, they would do anything for a hot meal.
Last fiscal year, MIFA reported that they served over 500,000 meals to over 3,600 seniors. How many more seniors do you really need to feed?
Well, quite a number. The waiting list at the Aging Commission of the Mid-South, they are the gatekeeper for our meals that are funded through the Older Americans Act. And right now they anticipate that their waiting list in Shelby County is at about 1,200. That's for all services, but meals is the most requested service.
And we talked earlier, 1,200. A few years ago, it was 2,000 people on that waiting list.
Yes.
So you've made a little progress.
We've made a little progress.
But never enough, I'm sure you would like to. What is it, what factors put seniors at risk of food insecurity?
Well, there are many. Home delivered meals, which is where MIFA's focus is. We also do congregate meals, but of course home delivered meals could be situational, that the senior cannot drive, they are in a wheelchair. It could be factors like that.
Or in a food desert. Even.
In a food desert,
Yes.
Financial instability. There can be a variety of factors.
Poverty, would you say that's the number one?
Poverty, living alone. The South has higher rates of food insecurity for whatever reason, so certainly poverty, race, not having family members around to help.
So many risk factors, in other words, with perhaps poverty is number one, would you say? Okay. And of course, Memphis, because it's a very poor city, like so many cities in the South, ranks unfortunately very high in a percentage of cities and states that have food insecurity. I believe the latest figure I saw was something approaching 20% of the population in the state of Tennessee are considered food insecure.
Right. Right, and I did just read a study as well that stated that Memphis, the Memphis metro area, has the highest rate for seniors at risk of food insecurity, and that's not something we want to be tops in.
No, we don't. Now, MIFA is just one agency that is doing this work. You've got other agencies, of course, during the No Hungry Senior program funded by PLOW, you had partner agencies, but who else is involved in trying to feed the need?
The largest, I would say, is the Mid-South Food Bank. A large percentage of their food goes to seniors. They have programs that are really targeted at seniors with food boxes. In terms of home delivered food interventions for those seniors at most risk, Meals on Wheels at MIFA is really the only service in Shelby County.
And outside of that, I presume there may be, the food bank may distribute food to churches where people can pick it up at churches.
Food pantries, right.
Food pantries and so
Right.
forth like that. And then of course, there's a federal assistance program, SNAP,
Right.
which is part of that equation as well.
Right.
What is the impact of hunger and food insecurity on individuals and then on our community?
Well, on individuals, it just it is enormous because, of course, there are the obvious health issues that someone might first come to mind. Diabetes and high blood pressure and many complications that our seniors that we're delivering food to face. But then there are also, I think, as we become more sophisticated in thinking of the impact of nutrition and on those things that we call social determinants of health that are more environmental factors. You have financial instability and loneliness and something like and food insecurity. So something like a home delivered meal can impact all of those things. It can be the dietitian can make it correct for diabetes and for high blood pressure, but also with the Meals on Wheels model, you've got the volunteer that is checking in, you've got a visit, so you're impacting loneliness and you're of course taking care of that meal for a senior, so that financially that's a big gift.
Well, extrapolate that out to the community. I can see how delivering meals to an individual will improve their life, improve their health possibly, but what about our community? What does meal delivery and taking care of people who are hungry, what does that do for our community?
Well, I have read a fact that says we can feed a senior with home delivered meals for the same cost as 1 day in the hospital or 1 week in a nursing home. And so that's an incredible financial savings to a community. But then I also think the fact that Meals on Wheels enables a senior to continue to live at home, that's stability for neighborhoods and for families. So it's hard to put a price on that, but that's an incredible community building factor of the program.
Now, the No Hunger Senior Program was part of the Aging Initiative from PLOW. You had a grant that lasted for 4 years, and now that grant period has ended. But during that grant, you were able to use some of that money to sort of mine some data.
Right.
What have you found out?
Right. One of our partners in the program was Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare, and they referred patients at discharge who would benefit from home delivered meals. And so they were able to look at those patients. There were about 230 that they referred, and because each patient has a unique number, they could look at that individual's hospital utilization before they even got Meals on Wheels and then after. So they compared a year before Meals on Wheels service and a year after, and found some we were thrilled and affirmed by the findings that hospital utilization, inpatient utilization for that group decreased by 34%, and overall utilization decreased by 21%. So we felt like this was real hard data that was affirming what we felt like we knew anecdotally, but now we had some hard data that could help us tell that story.
And that reflects back to the community. That's hard data
Right.
that supports the positive impact this is having on the community.
Right.
Getting back to the PLOW grant. Now the grant period is ended. So what about sustainability? Where do you stand with that?
Well, I'm very happy that the MIFA Board of Directors has made a commitment to saying we are not only going to sustain those seniors we're serving, but we're going to grow the program. So of course that means raising more money, and we are on that already. But I hope it is something that our community, because it certainly is a community issue and there are community savings as we discussed. So I'm hoping our generous community will step up as they have, because it's $9 a day to feed a senior, and that's the meal and that's the delivery, that's the volunteer check-in. So this is a service that I feel like Memphis can afford. We can afford to do this for the seniors that live with us.
Well, of course, that gets into the philanthropy of this city. We are a philanthropic city, but also we are a city of volunteers. So we should talk about volunteers. MIFA couldn't exist without volunteers, right?
Right. And the majority of our home delivered meals are delivered by volunteers. So if we were having to pay for that, certainly our service numbers would go down. And it's a really wonderful opportunity. One of our recent innovations, we're trying to make it even easier for our volunteers. So, you know, we have an app now.
Oh, you've got an app for that.
We've got an app for that on your phone, but it'll help you navigate your route, and you can confirm the meals that you have delivered. So it makes it very friendly for corporate volunteers or group volunteers to do and to share a route. So we're trying to be innovative.
And of course, the irony I discovered is you have far more volunteers willing to deliver meals than you have meals to deliver, correct?
Well, no, we always
No?
need volunteers because volunteers will go on vacation. They spend time away or are sick sometimes and can't. So we like to keep recruiting new volunteers and filling those routes. And we do have some paid drivers delivering routes, so we could always use more volunteers.
Let's talk a little bit about the future of this problem and where we go from here, because we know there are 10,000 baby boomers reaching age 65 every day. We're going to have 20% of our population over that age very shortly.
Right.
That means the numbers of people who are food insecure is probably going to grow.
Right.
How are we going to deal with that, 10 years, 20 years down the line?
Well, that's the big question, because if we're not meeting the need today, then it's just going to grow ever so much exponentially. I think that we need to continue to be innovative. We're excited that in January we will be launching a pilot in partnership with Meals on Wheels America and Humana to deliver to eligible clients, senior clients, 2 meals a day, a hot and a frozen, and then each client will also get a 60-minute friendly visit. So again, it goes back to those social determinants of health, the loneliness and food insecurity. But I'm really encouraged. I'm excited about the pilot to see what we learn, but I'm also encouraged that I think healthcare is really starting to see this is a simple solution. It's sort of a traditional solution. Meals on Wheels has been around for a long time, and perhaps people have taken it a little for granted. But to see that this simple and affordable solution can make such an impact on seniors, and I'm glad that and encouraged that healthcare providers and healthcare institutions might be seeing the value of this service and coming to the table.
Tell me that story that you told me about the individuals on the list.
Yes, I had a woman call me a few months ago whose parents were on the waiting list at the Aging Commission to get meals. And she just wanted to know what the normal experience was, because her parents had been on the list for 12 months. And she just wanted, is that normal? Is this what I am looking at? Her father's blind, her mother has dementia, and this woman works, so it was very difficult for her to figure out how to keep her parents at home while she needed to hold down a job. And fortunately, after 14 months, her parents both are now receiving Meals on Wheels, and she's grateful and they enjoy the meals. But it does make you think from that perspective, if you have parents here or parents in another city that you're trying to take care of, that can be a difficult task.
And anybody can find themselves in that situation.
Anybody.
Anybody. Mm-hmm. Wave a magic wand. What would be your magic wand solution to feeding the food insecure here in this city, in this area?
Well, I would certainly like to have that waiting list at the Aging Commission be at 0 tomorrow and be feeding all of those. I think that, as a community, we really have to come together, because there are a variety of solutions and different levels of food insecurity. But I feel like in Memphis we have the generosity and we have the agencies that I would love to have it be a program that just disappears.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Well, thank you very much for being on The Best Times talking about food insecurity.
Thank you.
As we age, our bodies go through a number of changes. We may feel weaker, sluggish, even have difficulty getting out of bed. Our mind might not be as sharp as it used to be. We feel mentally slow. Most of us will chalk this up to old age taking its toll, but it could be signs that your thyroid gland is malfunctioning. Do you know what your thyroid does? Can you even locate it on your body? Let's find out more about your thyroid. What is the thyroid gland?
Which is a gland that sits at the root of the neck. It makes one of the most important hormones in the body called thyroxine. This thyroid hormone is required not only for development during early life, but for continued metabolic function and continued functions of the brain and the entire systems of the body. So you can imagine how vital such a product is of the thyroid gland.
What is hyperthyroidism?
So people who have an overactive thyroid are in metabolic overdrive. Their heart is racing, their bowels are racing, they have frequent bowel movements, their heart is pounding, and they have kind of accelerated thinking processes and flights of thought, anxiety states, and they lose weight despite having voracious appetite. And so they also face a clear and present danger of heart disease, because when the heart is put in such a rapid spin, it sometimes runs out of the oxygen needed to do the pumping function. It's pumping so fast. So they have irregular heartbeats and atrial fibrillation and resultant adverse consequences. They can go into heart failure, for instance.
What is hypothyroidism?
So hypothyroidism can be likened to an individual who used to function very well, in whom most of the systems are beginning to fail. Things are kind of sluggish, the bowels are sluggish, the thought processes are slow, cognitive function is in decline, ability to retain and recall new information is greatly compromised, ability to be on the go, muscular function is weak, the heart itself is affected, and so no part of the body is really spared when there is insufficient thyroid hormone to drive the engine of the body.
Is age a risk factor?
Of the two extremes, the overactive and the underactive extremes, overactive thyroid is about as common in older people as in the younger people, but underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, running out of steam, having low thyroid, increases. The risk increases as we get older. After the age of 60, it's easily more than 10-15%, more than 1 in 10, 1 in 8.
Is gender a risk factor?
The conditions of underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, and overactive thyroid, hyperthyroidism, both are more frequently seen in women than men for a variety of reasons, but there is definite gender disparity. And so an older woman, for instance, will be at a greater risk for hypothyroidism than an age-matched older male.
How is thyroid dysfunction diagnosed?
We need to really measure the thyroid hormone levels in the blood circulation. And a very simple test, small sample of blood, sent away to the lab with a thyroid panel, will always come back informative. We have defined with ironclad precision for healthy human beings what the normal range, the lower end and the upper end of the thyroid hormone in blood plasma should be.
What is the treatment for hyperthyroidism?
Low doses of radiation, small doses of radioactive iodine, to target the overactive gland in the thyroid and calm it down so that if it is done right, the gland is producing just the right amount of thyroid hormone to run the body's engine, not more, not less. That approach is a widely pursued approach right now because of the convenience of a one-time treatment that promises potential cure.
What is the treatment for hypothyroidism?
And when we test an individual thyroid panel and it comes back low, we make a decision as to what dose to start them on. And then we do a test a month or two later, and then we do a low balancing act. Once we hit the dose right, it's a very tiny pill swallowed It's not an injection, just a pill. And once it reaches plasma steady state level, the effect on the patient is as if they are making their own thyroid hormone. So the condition of hypothyroidism has been completely reversed.
To find out more information about your thyroid, go to the National Institutes of Health website for patients and search for thyroid disease. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.